Hey folks. Um, I was reading a post made by a Facebook friend, and I came to think about, my friend was talking about energetics in general and in internal arts, and then it reminded me of my past Zen master and Zen art master, Terayama Roshi, who was from Japan, Tokyo, and this led me to think about certain phenomena that is used in spiritual arts, different spiritual meditative traditions, including Buddhism and also Shintoism, and also in some branches of Tibetan Buddhism. And to my knowledge, and also of course in some martial arts, specifically some Japanese martial arts. So I'm talking about KIAI, what is known as KIAI, and here I would like to define KIAI as a dynamic expression, dynamic action, or like I call it in my teaching work, dynamic concentration. So I used to train in Japan in Zen temple, and I also trained in a Shinto dojo, where there was a lot of this vocally dynamic activity, a lot of KIAI practice. Uh, by the way, that's not the only way to define KIAI, so it can be defined other ways. But here, anybody who's familiar with Japanese martial artists has heard about KIAI and how in karate or kendo, in other martial arts, they shout. They use different. It might be like just not planned, not any specific syllables or sounds that are shouted, but might be something like, I guess you could say, improvised. So I've seen this done a lot in Japanese traditions, and I've also seen it and experienced it, when Zen masters. I remember this one really great, exceptional Zen master whose nickname was the Old Buddha. His name was Harada Tangen Roshi. Harada Tangen Roshi. He passed away in 2018, and I was really fortunate to train with him for a short period of time in 2005 when he was 82, I think, around there. And so I'll briefly describe my one of the private discussions I had with him. So he had like a broken English, and I was meeting him in this small room. He was very kind to offer one-on-one moment one-on-one to people who didn't do residential training in his center, and that's how it happened. So he was there, I was there, and there was also a translator who would translate from Japanese to English or English to Japanese if it was needed. But I don't actually remember the translator saying anything because Tangen Roshi's English was good enough, and also I used to know some Japanese, so it worked language-wise. So he asked me to tell me who I was and what my training was and why I was in Japan and why I came to meet him. And I told him about by that time, I started practicing martial arts and sitting meditation when I was a small boy. So I told him that, and I told him that I had come to Japan to do some training, and I told of my senseis and my Roshi, Terayama Roshi, and he was like chuckling because he was really lovely. He was like an old cat, you would say. I could say, this really jolly, he had kind of sleepy eyelids. So it looked like his eyelids were going down like an eyelids of an old cat, and he was saying "Naturaru fight, good." Naturaru fight means natural fight. So, I was really happy to hear of my training and hear of my commitment. And then he started saying how he had practiced kendo when he was a university student back in the day, some about 70 years earlier. And he explained how he used to go to kendo sessions. And then I remember him, Zen-masters, they usually have this short stick, which is like a wooden stick of a Zen master, and he grabbed it. So he was casually, really in a relaxed way, explaining his martial training from back in the day, and then suddenly, he shouted very strongly, and I felt, the temple where we were, wooden temple, so it shook. Like I felt that it shook. And I don't remember, it really doesn't matter, what he shouted, if it was ha or ho or some other syllable, that's not really important, but that meeting happened almost 20 years ago, and I still remember it. I remember exactly how it sounded, and I remember I can still feel how it felt. And so this is one story about KIAI. And then a moment later, I moved to Tokyo to do training in dojo called Ichikukai. Ichiku means 19, so 19. Ichikukai. Kai means group or an association. So that dojo still exists. It's a dojo where Zen Buddhist practice and Shinto practice and some martial practices are, that's how they train. And that dojo was founded by one of Yamaoka Tesshu's, the legendary Tesshu's student, called Ogura Tetsuzu. He's the one who founded it. And in that dojo, on the Shinto side of practices, we used to shout these syllables a lot. It's called, many Shinto practices are named misogi. So the name of this practice was misogi harai. And, the practice had deep breathing. It had shouting of syllables of a short prayer. So we weren't shouting just anything, any random syllables or sounds, but very specific syllables of a short prayer. I can now remember. I remember the prayer in Japanese, but I don't remember the English meaning of it. It was something about like a jewel, which is a really common topic in any Dharma traditions. Something jewel, purity, something like this. I can check it out. So there, the KIAI, in different Japanese martial arts, they practice KIAI, but they don't really practice the way how we did in Ichikukai, because there those syllables were shouted with a rhythm for a long period of time. The initiation ritual, how you become a member of that dojo, lasts 3 nights and 3 days. So, over a period of 3 days, most of the time you're shouting with other new students who want to be members of that dojo. 3 days, not 3 minutes or 3 hours, but 3 days. And so that's just the initiation process. And then, we had for residential students, we had like a morning session and evening training session, and then we had special training days where we did more sessions. But at the time I was the only one who was doing training full time, so I actually did like a pretty intense training every day. I didn't go to work and didn't have any other responsibilities, so I used all my time for training. And I could speak about what other types of trainings I did when I was there. It was a lovely, lovely period in my life. I missed that really because, now 2 decades later, I have so many responsibilities and things and, relationships, and relationships come with problems and all that. So I really missed those days. Maybe I will go back for a short period at some point to Ichikukai or some other nice training place. But anyway, there KIAI was practiced in this really rhythmical fashion. There was slower rhythm, faster rhythm, and then fast rhythm. But shouting these syllables. To, ho, ka, mi, e, mi, ta, me, to, ho, ka, mi, e, mi, ta, me. Those were the syllables of the Shinto prayer. So the point that I'm trying to make, it's almost 12 minutes by now. I started making this video to talk a little bit how we can recognize our primordial nature. Call it Buddha nature, call it divine nature, call it with any term. We all have this basic nature. And so part of my work as a teacher of Amrita Mandala Sangha is to bring these practices that are not widely known and bring them to more people so that people have more effective practices that they can use to recognize their own primordial, basic, or Buddha nature or divine nature. So as I was reading my Facebook friend's post and I started thinking about Terayama Roshi, and I remembered about Tangen Roshi, and then I remembered about Ichikukai Dojo, I had the idea of making this video and making this brief introduction into shouting training or dynamic concentration. In meditative systems, as everybody knows, mostly what is done is gentle concentration, peaceful concentration. So, you're following your breath in the gut, in the nose, you're concentrating gently on the sensations in the body, you're concentrating gently on any object you can choose. But there is another kind of concentration, dynamic concentration, wrathful concentration, you could call it, where you, for some period of time, use your body, use your lower belly to produce the voice. You relax the muscles here, and you just let the sound come out. I've written about this extensively in my books, and especially my second book, What's Next on Post-Awakening Practice. You can get all my books for free from Amrita Mandala website. So I've explained all the ins and outs, the mechanics and all this, the reason why it works, why it enables us to recognize our basic nature. I've explained all of this in my books that you can get it, anybody can get it for free from the website. But I just wanted to make the point, in case you've made it this far in this video, that you can do this practice already now. If you have a moment, if you're in a space in your home where you can do a little bit of shouting. I mentioned ha and ho syllables. For example, they can be any syllables basically, but since we're doing a spiritual practice, dharmic practice, it's best to choose some syllables that have spiritual meaning. There's no point in shouting ma, ni, fortune, stuff like this. So if you have a couple of minutes, try this practice. For example, shouting ha, 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 or ho, 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 ho for a minute or two with a really strong voice, relaxed voice, punching it with your body, just letting it come out, letting it explode. Try it. 1 or 2 minutes, and that might be the best 1 or 2 minutes of your life. See what happens. All right, cheers. Thanks for watching. Later.